Okay, the last part of this lesson is instead of giving you a function table, you're given a graph. So what's important here is to identify what key points you definitely are given. So I can definitely see that I've been given my x-intercept, which would be -2, 0. I can see the other x-intercept, 6, 0. So given these two, I definitely could use factor form. I am also being given, and it is clear that my vertex is 2, -8. Sometimes it may not be that clear, and you may not be sure that it is exactly 2, -8, or whatever is given. So you may not want to use vertex, but it is clear that that is my vertex. Now we could use standard form, but with standard form, you would have to make a function table and put several points, and they would have to be in consecutive order in order to find your A value. Recall how to find the A value. You would have to find the first difference and then the second difference and divide it by 2. So if you're given the roots or the vertex, I suggest that you use factor form or vertex form. So for this one, we're going to use vertex form, and then on the next one, we will use factor form. So I'm going to use factor form. Let's plug in what we know. So we have x minus my h value plus my k value. Now let's pick another point. So we can just pick this point right here to plug in for x and f of x. So f of x is going to be 0. X is going to be 6. And now we're going to simplify the right side. 6 minus 2 is 4. 4 squared is 16 times a minus 8. Let's solve for a. Add 8 to both sides and divide each side by 16. My a value is 1/2. So f of x equals 1/2 x minus 2, quantity squared, minus 8. So if they ask for you to put it in any quadratic form, then this is fine. But if they had asked you to give standard form, I would still do vertex first and then expand x minus 2 times x minus 2 and multiply that and then by 1/2 and then subtract 8 like we've talked about. Okay, number 11. See, on this one, if you notice, look real closely, my vertex is not on any integers. It's going to be a rational number. So I'm not going to use vertex form. So we do know my two roots, -1, 0 and 4, 0. Another point that we can use is the y-intercept. So this is 0, 4. So we're going to use factor form. So let's plug in our P and Q. So it's x minus -1 and x minus 4. Now let's use the other point for x and f of x. So for f of x, we're going to plug in 4. For x, we're going to plug in 0. Now we're going to have 0 plus 1 times 0 minus 4. 1 times -4 is -4 times a. Let's solve for a. And my a value is -1. So we're going to have -1 and then x plus 1 times x minus 4. I'm going to go ahead and put this in standard form. So I'm going to have my -1. But first I want to distribute and get x squared minus 4x plus 1x minus 4. Combine like terms. And now I'm going to distribute the negative 1. I get negative x squared plus 3x plus 4. So this concludes lesson 6-8. You are learning how to write quadratic equations using the 3 forms, standard, vertex, and factored. And you're going to choose whichever one is appropriate for the given information. Now, at the beginning of our lesson, we talked about looking at function tables and knowing which one was linear and which one is quadratic and exponential. So don't forget that part. When you have a first difference that's constant, that's linear. When your output values are increasing by a common ratio, like times 2, times 2, times 2, that's exponential. And then again, we've been doing quadratic for most of this lesson.